Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Does your warehouse waste time and money managing forklift batteries? EnerSys can energize your operations with a customized solution, delivering the power you need while minimizing ownership costs. EnerSys starts by analyzing your operations and then selecting from their comprehensive range of battery and charger technologies, develops a truly optimized system tailored to your needs. EnerSys gives you the power to increase productivity and profitability. See how EnerSys puts power in motion for you at enersys.com. Businesses are retooling fulfillment operations, from warehouses to omnichannel, to meet new demand amid unprecedented labor shortages. 3PLs, retailers, B2B distributors, and others are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems to adapt and scale. 6 River Systems Fulfillment Execution System is an integrated solution that combines intelligent, cloud-based software and automation, including its autonomous mobile robot, AMR, Chuck. No costly or disruptive infrastructure changes, fast and easy associate training, and integrations with other warehouse execution solutions allow operations to meet labor challenges, increase efficiency, and enhance customer engagement. Go to www.6river.com to learn more. Go to www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I am going to be joined by Kimberly Owens. She is a principal architect at New Gen Architects, and she is focused on helping you in the supply chain space find the right solutions to be able to increase your productivity, efficiency, optimize your supply chain, and all those great things. And we're going to find out more information about New Gen Architects from Kimberly, but we're also going to talk today a little bit about tools in the warehousing space and tool selection and how to make the proper selection, but not only the proper selection, but make sure you make a selection that will help you to continue to grow and work with you for the long term. So we're going to talk to Kimberly about that. She's going to give us a little insight and talk to us a little bit about New Gen Architects as well. So Kimberly, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Yes. Well. Definitely. Good to have you here. I think coming by way of multiple connections, I think, through the next couple months ago. So it's good to connect and get you on the podcast here. Why don't you give us a little bit about your background and then kind of tell us kind of how you ended up at New Gen Architects. You've been there for a couple months now, I think, fairly new. So give us a little bit about your background, how you ended up at New Gen Architects, and kind of what New Gen Architects does.
No, Modex is definitely the gift that keeps on giving from a networking standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really enjoy about being back in person. So thanks again for having me today. So just my background, I'm actually a career-long supply chain professional, which I always like to call out because I feel like a lot of people stumbled their way into supply chain. I was really fortunate to...
That's very true, yeah.
to find my way into supply chain while I was studying at Penn State University. And so I started my career at a company called Armada. They're a big supply chain solutions provider in the food space, and really had the opportunity to work through a variety of areas of supply chain there, transportation, procurement, and planning. And while I was there, did a few system implementations on the transportation management side and then on the inventory management side. And so that's really where I found my, love of technology and supply chain coming together. And so spent a number of years there, and then joined a really high growth startup after that to really build out my own supply chain, which was a great opportunity from the ground up, super challenging, really fun to build the team, build the tools, build the process. And then late last year decided, I needed to take a little time out just to refresh, and had been talking to DC at NewGen. Her and I actually connected through a networking event through CSCMP that we're both really involved in a number of years ago. And so decided to jump into the consulting realm with her and really build out NewGen and take that love that I had found for supply chain and technology and bring that together. So just a little bit more about NewGen. We're really focused on supply chain transformation. So whether it's needing a new tool, needing new process, really looking at the end-to-end supply chain and not just coming in and saying, hey, we can help you with a new WMS. Here, we'll do the implementation and then we leave, or here's a playbook and then we leave. We're really about coming in and understanding truly what our clients need, how we can help them, make sure they select the right tool, they do the change management, they have the right process in place, because, at the end of the day, if you don't have that good foundation, a tool is not going to take you to the next level to continue to level up your supply chain.
All right. Interesting stuff, and definitely a great journey there. And I can totally understand needing a little refresher after building out an entire supply chain. That's quite the undertaking there. So, you mentioned in there, obviously, that you help with tool selection through NewGen Architects. That's kind of what we're going to focus on today. So before we kind of talk about the actual selection process, what do you consider a tool in the warehousing distribution space? What is an example of a tool that someone might be looking to add to their, I guess, quote unquote, toolbox in their distribution operation?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different ways that I personally, think about tools. Sometimes it can be as easy as just, I know everyone is like, oh, we need to get out of Excel, but sometimes it's just having a new process or, Excel sheet or something that's capturing data. So it can be something as simple as that, all the way up to, needing a new warehouse management system or implementing a warehouse management system. Whenever, we look at the market today, it's everybody wants the data. They want the analytics. Customers want to know where are my goods coming from? Where are they going? As do businesses. So I think it can really span a lot of different areas between, all the way from Excel all the way up to, having that gold standard of the, warehouse management system, inventory management system, to make sure that the employees are supported in their roles. They're not doing a lot of manual tasks. And, I think then the complete other end of the tools can, as we're seeing a lot of warehouse automation, scanners, robotics. So definitely a large range of tools, but we tend to focus more on the system side of it.
Gotcha. All right. And like you said, a ton of tools. When we talked about Modex, I mean, how many tools were there? That was a little crazy this time, I think, with all the technology and everything going on. But so obviously, you mentioned in there, there's a wide range of tools, and you mentioned all the way from, just maybe a simple Excel spreadsheet to help you just capture some data, all the way up to what you call the gold standard of a full-on warehouse management system and implementing something like that. So there's different progressions, obviously, for companies, and we talk a lot on the podcast about small and medium-sized businesses as well, and how they kind of progress and grow, how they start to implement these different technologies. So from that perspective, going through sort of different iterations and phases of their technology, when do you know, I guess, as a company or a business that's growing, when do you know it's time to implement a new tool?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, as an early stage company, great to start out with those manual processes, tools to really understand your foundations, because the worst thing you can do is run, quickly into a tool. It's the wrong tool. You've spent time, you've spent money, and now you're having to come back and find another one. Right. So I think it's really whenever you get to the point of throwing just more and more people at the problem, and there is efficiency that can be gained by adding a tool in. if there are a lot of, manual workarounds that are going on, a lot of transfers of data from one, system to another, or one spreadsheet to another, that can really open you up for having bad data, interpreting data. And then lastly, I would say the security side of it.
Right.
If you have your data and it's not really secure, I think it's then a good time to start looking at that next tool. Or if you do have an antiquated tool that's, not serving you from an integration standpoint, security standpoint, then looking to level that up. Definitely time to do that. Just based on everything that we're seeing, especially in the, the importance of security, people being hacked, data,
Right.
leaking out, or, it's good to have good protection on that for your customers, your financials, and all of that. So I think it's a number of different things depending on the stage of the company and, what tools you have in place today. But if you're doing a lot of trading between systems manually, you don't have the integrations in place, then it's definitely time to start to look to level that up and not just throw more people at the problem.
Yeah, interesting points. And I will say, you mentioned the security aspect there, which actually I was not thinking about, but I think sometimes that's an important point, because even the small to medium-sized businesses, they may be thinking that, not necessarily a target for something like that. But I would say from personal experience, working at I guess what would be considered somewhat of a medium-sized business, we did go through like a full-on hack, and they held everything. I guess it was like ransom in a sense, and they basically took over the entire system, took over like our shared drives, everything we had. And so not being protected in that sense, can be a huge thing. We were completely down for like 2 days. Basically, we couldn't get into our system, and when we came back to it, we had to actually go to a refresh, which was like 2 or 3 months in the past. So it was like a lot of lost work and data and stuff like that. So it was an interesting point that you mentioned that there as well. So with the progression, and I think maybe to give an idea to people of what you mentioned there about, you don't want to choose the wrong tool and then have to figure out later on what to do to correct that. So do you have any examples maybe you could share with us to kind of just underline that point of maybe a company that you guys have had to come in and help, I guess, rescue them in a sense from a bad tool selection?
Yeah. So there's actually, unfortunately, a lot of times we get called in towards the end of an implementation when things are going sideways, or after an implementation has happened. So
Right.
We had a client that did an ERP implementation. They were on a really old version of their previous tool. They had to either upgrade or move into a new tool. So they opted to move into a new tool. And unfortunately, the implementation partner that they had didn't do a good job at scoping out their process and really understanding what the business needs were. And so they essentially shoved all of their data into this new ERP and tried to use the ERP to solve all of their problems instead of looking at other systems. And, we were doing some other process work with them at the time, and they asked us to come in and help them kind of right the ship and get them back on track from an ERP standpoint. So, it's unfortunate. It happens more than, we would like to see, but a lot of times, a salesperson comes in, they sell someone on, all the bells and whistles. Hey, this is going to solve all your problems. And if you don't have that fundamental foundation of process, really understanding what you need, things can go sideways really quickly. So one of the things that we really look at is what are your processes today? What are you trying to achieve in the future? A lot of, companies still have highly customized tools in the warehousing space and, transportation. And it's like, do you actually need that customization, or is there a better way that we can think about things? So whenever we come in, it's really trying to understand those deep processes and not just, hey, you need to move, a box around your warehouse and ship it out, so that we can help identify and select the right tool. We always kind of make a joke that it's like matchmaking, right? You want to have the right, the right tool and the right fit for you and everyone else in your organization.
Interesting. Yeah. And it is interesting that, there's sort of that perception sometimes, like you mentioned, I guess this company uses as an example, the system is going to come in and it's going to, fix all of our problems. Like all the headaches we had before, like the system will fix. And, the system certainly will help improve some things, but, it's not kind of a cure-all for everything. And that's usually the case. And like you said, it may involve multiple different systems or working in different ways and different processes as well. So things need to change in that sense. So it's good that you guys are able to come in and help people, hopefully, helping them before they get to the point of rescuing, right? Before the SOS. So, you started to talk a little there about the selection, right? Which I think is a big, important part of getting new tools in place, because as your example kind of showed, not making the proper selection or making a proper selection, but not adding on the things that are also needed in that sense can put you in a bad position. So for companies who are looking to, look at different systems, and, obviously there's companies like you guys, NewGen Architects, that can come in and help them make that selection. But what types of things do companies need to understand, I guess, about their own business and understand about technology that's out there available to them in order to make the proper selection for that tool?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's number one, having a good, clearly defined organizational goals and objectives, right? Like what are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? So having that good strategic plan, first off, and, secondly, not just implementing the first tool that calls, right? We all get cold calls on LinkedIn or, hey, I see you're in the warehousing space. Like, you should implement my new warehouse automation tool. And I think it's really looking at the market, understanding what is out there, what is that tool offering, as well as, how does it stack up against other tools. Whenever somebody's pitching a new tool to you, it's okay, I thank you for the overview. Like, how can you show me a real use case of how this works in my environment? So really understanding upfront how it would look in your with your data, whether it be a sample of data or with your process. So I think it's asking a lot of those questions up front and really having a strong understanding of what the internal needs are, what the roadmap is, as you go forward. Are you a direct-to-consumer business today and you're looking at getting into the retail space? Taking those things into consideration so that you're selecting that tool that allows you to scale, and you don't end up in a position where, you've selected, implemented the tool, it's solved today's problems, and then, a year from now, you're like, okay, well, now we want to, shift into this other area. Now we need to do another implementation or change our tool, and that's slowing your business down. So I think really understanding that the need up front is just really helpful to set a company up for success. And then asking the hard questions to that provider and, getting references, understanding what other spaces they're playing in. If, you're in food and they only do automotive, understanding, can they do things like shelf life? Can they do lot code tracking? Like, do they have the things that you need to support and scale your business?
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer.
Yeah, very good points there. And I think it goes back to, kind of setting that foundation and the expectation, and, making sure you understand yourself what it is you actually need, instead of having, like you mentioned, the cold calls and the pitches on LinkedIn, which I will say, some of them are just ridiculous. Like look at my profile and see what I actually do before you tell me I get some, it's crazy. I'm an adjunct professor, right? And they're sending me a message telling me, do I want to change the whole communications plan for the university? I'm an adjunct professor. I teach one course. I have no power in that sense. Look at my profile. So anyway, that's a little rant. But so looking at those things and really understanding what your actual needs are, instead of just going off something that's saying you guys would need this. And I think it's important in that sense too. Kind of going back to one of your original comments there, is that you may not need a full on WMS yet or something of that nature, even though maybe someone's trying to sell you a full WMS. It may not be time for that in your evolution. So understanding really those business needs and what you're trying to accomplish with those goals is really important to start that selection, as you mentioned. And the other thing is that obviously we get in business because we want to grow our business, right? So we want to continue to evolve, and we want to put tools in place that are not just going to support us for the next year of business. We want tools that are going to support us for a couple of years at least, as we go through more growth and more stages of our evolution. So when you make those selections and you start to implement these tools, how do you kind of in a sense understand and ensure that you can count on this tool and know that this tool is going to help take you to the next level and maybe beyond that?
Yeah, so I think it really goes back to that foundation first, right? Making sure that the requirements are clearly understood when implementing the tool. So we use a really iterative approach with a lot of agile and waterfall methodology behind it, where whenever we're coming in to sit and help a client, we're going through configuration and testing and doing quick iteration to make sure, hey, this is what we heard, this is what we understand, is this correct? And so I think it's important, whether you're working with someone like NewGen or doing it internally, just having that feedback loop to make sure that you don't go in, implement an entire end-to-end system, and then realize, hey, this isn't what the business users wanted. So having that iterative process, validating business processes, getting sign-off from the actual business users is super important during that, the configuration and testing steps. And then once you get past that into the implementation and then even into the support, it's really about the change management. You can have a COO that comes in and says, hey, we're going to implement X tool. And if there's not good change management and buy-in from the team, then the tool isn't going to be effective. It will be, partially used. Some people may adopt it, some people may not. And so we see that as, a really important step, is that continuous process innovation, continuous making sure that people are being trained, they're using the tool correctly, getting that user feedback, and you can still continue to refine at that point. But if you do implement the tool and don't have that user buy-in and support, then the tool's not going to continue to support what you implemented it for. And then I think lastly, the thing that companies sometimes don't think about is the making sure that you have the right internal support for that tool. So it may require you to hire someone that you don't have today, or somebody with a different background. to continue to be that, the champion internally on your IT side from a tool standpoint that's supporting the tool. Because without that, it's, you can continue to go back to your implementation partner or to the owner of the tool. But if you don't have that skill set, then it's going to be expensive to continue to do that. And then also hard to continue to scale the tool. So those are just some of the things that we think about of, really having that iterative approach, and then also making sure that you have the support in place.
Yeah, it's a really good point there about the support person as well. I think that's like another tool in a sense, I guess you could say. Because I've certainly been involved and seen where you don't have like that person on staff that really knows the system and is able to support. And like you mentioned, you go out and you go back to like the tool provider or maybe even like a consultant or something else, and it gets expensive, especially when you want to try and do things and you want to maybe change some things, or your business changes like a little bit, or there's a difference in a process and you want to be able to tweak the system a little bit to do something like that. Not having someone in your team that can do that can make that difficult. And sometimes and I think that companies can see that well, now we have to outsource this a little bit, change or figure this out. Well, now it's gonna cost money, right, to do this, and they're like, well, let's put it to the side for now, but really, as the people doing the work and actually the functions day to day, like you're like, oh, we need this, but having somebody on staff that can just do it, then you kind of don't get caught in that situation where you're thinking like it's really costing you more, even though in the long run it's probably going to give you some savings and some continuous improvement. But I think that's a great point there, to make sure that and even I think in the selection process probably too, you want to understand what level of support are you going to have from the system provider, or what level of support maybe you're going to need internally as well, because you mentioned there it could be like a new position totally, like you may not have somebody on staff that's going to be that person yet. So I think that's a really great point there. And obviously I think the insights that you've given us here today, are really great in order for companies to ensure that they're making the right and choosing the right path in their tool selections, and being able to put something in place that's going to help them grow. And obviously we're seeing so much growth for a lot of distribution companies right now in the past couple of years, as e-commerce has just kind of like exploded and taken over even more than it was before. And a lot of companies are going into these new phases and dealing with volumes that they may have never seen in the past, and not just like a little peak volume, but seeing peak levels the whole year basically. So as these companies are going through that, and we're seeing this rapid growth in e-commerce, what type of tools are you seeing from new gen architects, or just in the marketplace in general? What do you see organizations really investing in lately from a distribution perspective? What types of tools are really kind of popular or being asked about from customers a lot?
I think a lot of what we are seeing is really, how can I be more efficient and effective with my data? So whether that's data trading, if you have a 3PL that you're working with, how can I get that data from them to my company, and vice versa, as well as the the data around giving, we're both consumers, right? Like we want to know, like, where's my thing? When's it coming? What time is it going to be here? And so we're seeing a lot more around like how to build those platforms, how to provide that data. And then I think too, warehouse automation is really huge, just based on labor shortages. How can I make my employees more efficient? Whether it's wearable scanners, having actual robotics in the warehouse, just to then cut down on the manual steps around, bring the product to me so that I don't have to go to it, to cut down on that time and really having to have more and more staff in the warehouse. So I think it's, those are definitely two things that we're really seeing. And then just companies continuing to figure out, how do I scale? Supply chain has obviously been really impacted over the past few years. As you said, a lot of people have seen really rapid growth.
Yeah.
And so it's what are the quick wins that I can get to keep up with that while not taking, 12 months to implement a full on tool that, I know I need, but how can I work my way there in the meantime?
Interesting. Yeah. I think, obviously we touched on Modex, but, I think it's evident that, so many of the automation and robotic solutions are now really taking kind of the main stage in a sense, and people are really taking them on and really utilizing them in a practical sense. And I think the labor shortage obviously is driving a lot of that, and just trying to be more efficient. And like you said, where is my stuff? Why is it not here already? Right. So people are trying to figure out how to accommodate that consumer mindset and get it to them more quickly. And I think it's really interesting to see how, like you said, you've been in supply chain your whole career. I think, over the past couple of years, just how things have evolved from a technology perspective. It's pretty incredible. And it's pretty wild to see, some of the things. I mean, even, just in my sense, in my personal life, as a kid, I guess and didn't think that, robots would be so prevalent and being used in all these practical senses, right? So it's really cool to see and be a part of it as well. So, Kimberly, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and talking to us about tool selection and tools and how you guys go about it and making that proper selection, which I think is a real key that you've demonstrated today. So if people are interested in learning more about NewGen Architects and getting in touch with you, how can they do that?
So our whole team is very active on LinkedIn, always a great place to reach out. So I'm also active on LinkedIn if you want to reach out, Kimberly Owens on LinkedIn. And then you can also go to our website at newgenarchitects.com.
All right, great. And we'll put all the information at thenewwarehouse.com as well. So, Kimberly, thank you again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.